You know it's go time. When you're ready for intel, you know where you're coming to. You don't know who my name is. You don't know what my name is, but you know who I am. I'm here to tell you the real story. Did all you guys see what was happening there? You see Jeff Bezos and Amazon, they put the guillotine right on his front yard. But let me ask you a question. Why would the guy who's chopping off every one of his competition during this corporate-led melee be the one who has a guillotine in his yard? Maybe because he doesn't want the mob that he's paying for to be out there. You remember that guy owns the Washington Post? You know about that? He's getting the money from the DOD for that cloud. He's living high on the hog. He's living in heaven. And what's happening to the rest of us? Well, he doesn't care about that, but you know he's a threat, and he's going to stand up for social justice, and everyone's going to be just fine with Amazon. After all, we're all Amazonians now. They've taken over. You see how they've taken over. They've overrun Western civilization. Athens has fallen. So has Rome. So has Jerusalem. All of these places are gone. That's the conspiracy we're watching today. Those of you who don't know, some of you don't know me, you haven't seen me before. I'm the guy who tells you the truth. That's all I do. You don't need to know who I am. I tell you the real things that are happening in the real world. You watching that dam in China? You guys probably don't even know about that. The flooding's been going on for days and days. Can't get a drop of rain in America, but every single drop is falling over there in China till it comes down. Weather warfare, bio warfare. Are you ready for the brand new world? Are you ready for unrestrained war with technology that hasn't been seen since before the Dark Ages? You know why those ages went dark? Because all the lights went boom. That's what we're seeing today. We're seeing this happen over and over and over again. We saw more people get shut down today. Stefan Molyneux, gone. Donald Trump, not on Twitch. American Renaissance, not this century. Everyone is getting shut down. Gab told you the social credit score is coming to Visa. You don't think the banks are deciding who gets what? And all that money's going away? Everyone's going to be on the card. Everyone's going to be on the chip. Everyone's going to be traced. And if you're a bad boy, they're going to shut you down. You listen to programs like this, I'm going to be gone. I'm going to the country, going to be hiding out where no one can find me and no one knows what's happening. That's what needs to be happening now, because the virus, that's coming back. It's got tails to whip you into shape if you don't listen anymore. You don't believe me? Go look at what Financial Times said. I can tell you any of these things. Or we got a swine flu lining up real nice as a real sweetheart over there in China. That's coming too. But those are the things that aren't even that scary. If you get really scary, you start to look about these things, you know, the plans for the camps, all those things that are happening, every nightmare, Agenda 2030. You can look it all up. We don't live in a world where people exist anymore. We live in a world where there are slaves and controllers. And that's what we're going to be seeing real soon, and it's going to be real ugly. I hope you're all ready for it. Do you have food? Good. You might survive till they take it from you. You have weapons? You're a criminal. Are you happy about that? You want to keep your family safe? You're in charge of causing problems. You know, you're guilty of, if you're like me, you might be guilty of white fragility. The tougher you are, the weaker you become, don't you know? When you live in an upside down world, all you get to do is fall. You may as well get high, take it easy, be all right. That's what you need to do. I did come from the deep underground military bunker. You're right. Straight from Dugway Air Force Base. You know where I'm coming from. NSA, I see you before you see me. I know what you were finding under those Hohokam ruins. Don't think I don't know. In Dulce, I was there too. I knew that sweetness that was put out there. I know what the seances taught you, and I know. And let me tell you the secret that none of you know, the real conspiracy. There's good and there's evil. And you've been taught a very special trick. If you don't want someone to be able to tell what's right, what you do is you give them 100 false choices and one right choice. You give them 1,000. You give them 10,000 choices. You have the boys at Tavistock tell the boys at Stanford, here's how we're going to do it. You make Silicon Valley rich and you make the people poor. You give them a taste of freedom. You give them that little bit of taste, just like that first hit of a drug. And then they become addicted to social media. They get on the dopamine trip, and you can't get off this ride. Your brain's rewired, and the screen goes right to your optic nerve. You want to know how you're connected to the internet? These are your conduits. This is the world you go into. Can you unplug? Can you get unjacked? Are you ready for that? 300 kills, man. I tell you what. The sword is weaker than the pen, and the pen is weaker than the word. I got one weapon. I got the truth. I'm the last guy out here who's telling you the truth. They're going to shut me down, but that's okay. They can make me go away, but they can't make the ideas go away. Truth, that's what scares them. Love, that doesn't scare them. They don't want you to know what I know, and they don't want anyone to know the truth of what's happening. We sit here 6 months out from a fight. America's being taken down. China's being engineered away. India's going to go to war. What's happening? I'll tell you what it is. The New World Order doesn't involve you. Who said there was humans in the New World Order? Machines to serve you? Demons to lead? People who think they're going to survive forever in machines? But the joke's on them. They'll be the last ones dead, locked in the box forever. And at least you might escape if you're smart. You can't run from the fight, and you can't run from the truth. You can run from me all day long. I ain't going to chase. I'm easy. I'm easy like the wind. But those are the problems that are out there. That's what's real. So that's the conspiracy for today. And I tell you what else I know about this. The virus is one part of it. Absolutely. It's coming back. But you have to get wise now. You got to make friends. You got to find a community. You got to find someone who's going to keep you safe. Because you know what? Even if you dig the perfect bunker, when you're a hole on a radar map, it ain't going to be long before the Moab finds you as an example. If you don't have friends, you don't have anybody. That's all I got for you guys tonight. You all keep safe. We're going to keep an eye out for you. So I, and my terrible accent, am Tom Kaczynski. Welcome to tonight's episode of Central Intelligence Unscripted, what we're calling it for now. And the conspiracy guy had to come on. I don't know. He told me, I don't know. But I do have a couple of good things. The hoodie and sunglasses are definitely not wife approved. You know, the sunglasses are the wives. I'll show you something funny. They have this ridiculous, well, she wouldn't say it's ridiculous. It's got these little snakes on the side or whatever. But I borrow those from Dana because I don't actually wear sunglasses. The hoodie, meanwhile, is very much wife approved. So welcome to the show. I'm glad you're all here. It took me a couple minutes to get ready, but thank you. I have heard about the new virus coming out of China. We'll cover all of that. I'm going to give you a couple quick updates in lieu of my beginning here. And to say thank you, as always, for everyone who tunes in. Always appreciate each and every one of you. Enjoy being here, having a lot of fun with the show. I will tell you, YouTube will probably cancel this show when they get down to the point where there's no one better to get rid of. So enjoy it while you can. When it's gone, we will try to figure out a way to get over maybe to DLive. Because I know Vimeo's kind of been crappy to people and BitChute just doesn't work that well. So you can find me there. And I would really, really, really recommend, if you want to find me, go on Telegram. Very easy to follow me there. And as the shutdowns go, look, I mean, that's what's going to happen. We have to be ready for that. So I want to show you one book I got just because I'm really excited. Came in the mail today. Check this out. I had to work really hard to find this. The White Armies of Russia, a chronicle of counter-revolution and Allied intervention. You can never find books that say what problems the Bolsheviks caused and how to fight against them. I did. Yay. Because I hate Bolshevism, and y'all know that. So absolutely, that is one thing I have. So let me give you a programming note. I will be doing an episode, unless something really weird happens, on Wednesday morning for Coronavirus Central, that you have the opportunity. We will cover the question about the flu. We will go ahead and also cover the Financial Times article and the study that's related. I think it's in Cell. I'll have a chance to look at it, hopefully tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm literally going to be cooking 17 quarts of chili. So I'm going to be busy canning foods. But what my plan is, we will have a Friday evening show. And then next week, I believe I'm going to be working on a new format. So you may find this exciting or you may find it horrible. But one of the things we've been talking about is the idea of radical centrism over here. And I have a new way I want to phrase that, which is that there's really only two parties at this point. There's the party of concord and the party of discord. And what do these terms mean? Concord is the party that goes out there that tries to bring people together. It tries to go ahead and work towards greater peace. It works towards happiness, tranquility, all the things that we love, and understands that there's a higher purpose in this. The party of discord is big these days. It's the anarchists in the streets, but it's the Democrats and Republicans in Congress as well. It's all of the people who are trying to make money off dividing people, who basically see us as objects to be used and who are part of a evil, sinful, vice-filled system. So really what I am working on is this idea that we need to have something more, and what you will see me do as a part of that is what I'm calling tentatively, although I may change it, Free Atlantic Radio. What I am going to be doing is I'm going to commit to, we'll start with an hour a week, but it's going to be more than that eventually once I find my footing, because I'm doing a lot of writing right now. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to give you the same coverage you guys love from the podcast in detail, but we're going to take a much wider view of things, and you're going to get the full experience of what I think, and you're going to understand why I do this and how that's going to go ahead and work out. So we're going to talk about, and I will tell you, I can't help but say things from a Christian perspective, because to me that is the truth. But the show isn't really about that. It's just I'm not going to ignore that, and I'm going to call balls and strikes where I see them. We're going to talk about the social decay that's happening. We'll cover current events as relevant. We'll cover some virus stuff. We'll cover a lot of social decay stuff, and I'm going to call people out, and I'm going to look for opportunities for us to work on issues. I'm going to talk about the idea of why we need to separate from DC, because we have to talk about how Congress is screwing us, how the Fed is screwing us, how the anarchists are insane, and how our leadership is a bunch of pussies. And I'm sorry that word will offend people, but it is the truth of it. And we need something better. We need law and order, but we need laws that are just and order that makes sense. And we're going to talk about how to get there. We don't have a lot of time. Civil War is coming. I wrote the book, The Coming Civil War. Get it on Amazon while you still can, as well as Incoming, the sequel to it. And one of the things I said was that when you got to a point where the cultural decay was too bad, people would have to fight because they couldn't agree on what was right. And we are now dealing with a morality war between good and evil. The forces of evil are basically those who say nothing has value, everything was bad, our civilization was a mistake, and everything needs to be destroyed, wrecked, and taken down so that we can all go ahead and just have a feeling circle jerk. If you don't know what it is, don't look it up. I should use that term. But ultimately, that's what we're dealing with today. And in case of that, I'm having to step up and provide a lot more leadership. I even know today someone tried to hack my accounts again. The minute I start talking, they come after me. And I'm prepared for that. That's what's going to happen. And that's the price I'm going to pay. But a lot of brave men and women are being taken down right now from their ability to speak. Therefore, I have to speak more. I have to speak more loudly, and I have to be the voice until I get shut down. Everyone has to be willing to pick up the flag. You know, when you're in a battle in the old days, what happened is the biggest honor you could have was to pick up the standard. And I'm picking up the standard not for America, not for just Christianity, but all of Western civilization, which was the fusion of Christian social ethics with the talents of European civilization in the effort to make humanity actually advance a little bit. And that's something I feel very proud of, and I'm going to do the very best I can with that. I don't have answers to everything. I'm literally making this up as I go. I don't like being reactive, but I will put a lot of ideas out there that will hopefully be helpful, and that will be the new format. So you're welcome to listen. It won't be for everybody. I get that, and I'm okay with that. If it isn't for you, it isn't for you, and that's okay. And there'll be a lot more people come on board. A lot of people have asked me to step up and provide leadership such as I can, and I'm going to do that because I see people going out there like the Jacobins in 1789, and someone needs to step up. So that's my job, and I expect fully in the next week to month to be banned from Amazon, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and all those places. And when I do, you will be able to find me on Telegram. I will keep the website at coronaviruscentral.net, and I may get a new URL, in which case I will share that with you. Big things are happening behind the scenes. This is not going unchallenged, and I want to tell that to people so you feel much more confident. And that as we do this, one thing I will always focus on is the safety of everyone involved, every good person. I don't have an ideological test. I just have a sanity test. If you literally can't tell up from down, we might have a little bit of an issue in communication, but I know there's a lot of people on all sides of this who've been betrayed, a lot of people who are trying to do the right thing, be safe. You know, I know the George Floyd situation, for instance, a lot of people were concerned about the police brutality and about an unjust act. I'm with you on that, but this is far past that. And if you don't see that and don't understand that, I don't know what to tell you. Literally, we have Marxists running around in the streets trying to tear down every statue known to mankind. Every corporation saying they're cool with it because they don't want to be picked apart while they're going around trying to go through the mob. You have a government that doesn't listen to the president. You have a Congress that doesn't do anything but sit there. And you have an elected political class that literally is clueless to everything happening while the rest of us are living in the countryside. So let me give you a rural Maine update. I've seen in the last week in rural Greenville, Maine, population 1,600, plates from Washington, Idaho, Texas, California, Kansas, Georgia. And mind you, Maine is closed still. So figure out what I'm telling you. Maryland, Delaware, North Carolina, Virginia, New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts. None of those are spread. Oh, and Minnesota. So everywhere things are falling apart, people are going for the exits. We had 4 houses go up for sale in my area in the last week. All 4 of them have sold. And I tell you what, you haven't seen more pickup trucks than I ever seen in my life. And that is literally the way that this is working. So what is happening? People are going for the exits. People don't want to say the truth. They want to live the truth. And my advice to you that I'm going to give every single episode is get to a place that makes sense. A time is coming when money may not mean that much. I'm looking at the food supplies. It's looking a little dicier going forward because everyone who is betting on a reopen is looking at the numbers going up and saying, oh, everything's going to be shut down again. These are the things you need to be worried about. So get more food, the protein prices especially. Carbs will be easier to come by, but you're going to want proteins. You're going to want fats. Plan for that and start making friends. Start making arrangements, and do it in your region. And I'm doing it for the Northeast because that's where I live. But that doesn't mean you don't do it where you live. If you're in the South, if you need help setting things up, I will make time to go ahead and help people. I've literally given up the idea of trying to make money. I'm just going to figure out how to do this. I'm going to go out there. So if you want to provide some support, if you agree with what I'm doing, send a super chat. There's the Venmo while it's still up, CVC PRV. This is where it's at, and wherever you're at. If you're in the Northwest, you guys know what you're doing. I know all about what's happening up there. You guys got a head start. Go for it. If you are in California, you got a harder road to go for it. I don't need people down in Dixie. I didn't tell people down in Dixie what they need to do. You understand. You should already understand. Your daddy's daddy understood. People in the Midwest are good, solid folk. Do not go along with people just to be nice when they are wrong to you. And then, God bless Texas. There's nowhere, including places, if you live in the New York City ghetto or something, that's fine. If you live in a tough Boston neighborhood or you live in the barrio of San Antonio, wherever you live, you figure out how to work with people who are there. You figure out what you believe in. We will be coming out in the coming weeks and months with a simple set of policies to follow, and we're just not going to back down from it anymore. And if our government won't take care of it, the citizens will have to. And that's just how it's going to have to be. But we're not looking for a fight. We're looking to go ahead and defend our own ground. And Rachel, thank you for that very generous gift. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. That's awesome. And for our Canadian friends, by the way, you're not exempt from any of this. If things get as funny as I think they are, keep an eye. You might see forces stationed in your country, and I'm not even joking, between now and the next 6 months to arrange an invasion of the United States. I've read some things related to the UN, relationships with China. It's crazy. It sounds nuts, but things happen that are very strange. If that happens, know that Yankees understand that Canadians are not our enemies, and we'll be working together. I'll be speaking French if I have to, going up there helping the Quebecois if that ever comes to be, if I'm not busy down here in Maine, and that's how it's going to be. So these are some of the things that are out there. We live in a very crazy world. I can't even tell you half of what I read, and I can't tell you the truth, but I know we're coming into a very dangerous weekend. July 4th, you always hear about those flashbangs, the fireworks, and there's a lot of rumors floating around that there are going to be terrorist attacks that are going to happen. Very possible. 2 flashpoints I'm keeping an eye on. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. There's always the big Civil War reenactment. Some may remember the Battle of Gettysburg was fought on July 2nd through July 4th. I think if I remember right, it's 1862, I want to say, or is it 63? Let's see how good my memory is. Gettysburg battle. Was it 62 or 63? 63. Okay, my bad. 1863. I should have got that. So in 1863, they had that battle. They're planning on having all those reenactors to celebrate American history. Antifa sending people out there. Point of order for you people in the DA's office. Why don't you do your damn job and enforce some laws? Oh, wait, because you're lying pieces of crap who have been bought and paid for. People paid to get you in office, and understand we have a government that's in active sedition, not against President Trump, but against the very laws of the land. This is what chaos looks like. These are the forces of discord. Discord was once understood as a demon that emerged from hell to destroy people and bring their souls into perdition and death to everyone. You don't have to be a religious person to understand why laws being unequally enforced is a really bad idea. But if you understand the greater depths of it, you understand that it's designed to destroy civilization, because when we cannot trust one another and we don't have arbiters, all that's left is force. And we are being manipulated and maneuvered into a war of all against all. Do not let that happen in your community. And if there are bad people, impeach them, remove them, do whatever you have to do. And at some point, that may require visceral acts. I'm just telling you. You'll have to watch, and you'll have to play that by ear. Unfortunately, that's the reality that we're living with today. And that might get me banned, but I can't lie to you. I have to tell you what we're going to deal with. Okay, so that is one place to keep an eye on. Another place you have to do is look at Richmond. Richmond's going to have an issue. The Proprietarians are having their convention down there. We'll see how that goes. They're having a big big Second Amendment rally, and I'm sure given that the mayor is pretty terrible in Richmond, from what I understand, and I know Governor Northam is really rough on protesters, especially when they're of the right-wing variety. Expect things to get ugly. Sheriffs may come in, as well as the Virginia State Police. It's a flashpoint. I'm keeping an eye on it. There's a lot of other areas where things could happen, and the other thing is demoralization designed to prevent you from enjoying the holiday, so you are not safe, you are not able to do things. If you can go see fireworks, and you can do so in a way where you're not putting your health at risk you're uncomfortable with, go ahead and do that. You absolutely should. And I will tell you, even with the virus, I've started to take certain chances because I don't have a choice not to. And how you balance those risks is something you're going to have to consider. I always wear my mask when I go out and when I do things, but I have to go out more because that's where it is. And the truth is, they're lying to you. All these people are lying about how to keep safe. They're just saying wear cloth masks and keep 6 feet apart. Most of it does go through the eye ducts or through those cloth masks. So someone's not telling you something. And the more I'm learning about this, the more concerned I'm getting about what's happening behind the scenes. Do not be too agreeable. Do not be too willing to accept the story you're told. And do not ever trust authority on any side because there's just so much corruption in all of it. I don't know what else to say about that. So that is sort of my opening monologue of it. And Lord knows I'm going to end up being repetitious about a lot of my themes as we go forward. And there's no way around that. And it's unfortunate, but I will try to answer all of your questions as I always do. You guys always love to hit me with a couple gotchas that are going to get the channel banned, but that's fine. We're going to talk about it. We'll talk about whatever you guys cover. That's what I do with you. That's the value of the show. This is a unique experience you get nowhere else on the internet with, someone who has at least some virtue and some value, I hope. So thank you to everyone who's here. Welcome. Thank you, John, for your generous gift. I appreciate that. These are the decisions that we have to make going forward. So we are going to have to make some very smart decisions and make some friends. And I would recommend you start doing it in your area. I certainly have been doing it up here in rural Maine and will continue to do so. So that's what we have to do. And I will say this. It is my hope and my belief that all of us who are going to be targeted need to be willing to work with each other, people like us and people of goodwill, to provide means for people to escape and to organize our strength at some point. There will come a day in the not too distant future where we will have kangaroo courts and we will deal with situations like the Uyghurs deal with in China. That's already been planned. It's already been plotted. And the guillotines you're seeing everywhere are no accident. They're designed to condition you to the idea of normalcy of using these. It's no accident, and the moment we get through this election, whomever wins, I think we'll be facing those sorts of challenges. And I will tell you something weird I observed, and I know some people love Trump, some people hate Trump, but I have never seen a Biden sign anywhere. I think that's interesting. For the Trump people, you see Trump signs or you see Gadsden flags or something, but I've only ever seen the other side with rainbow flags and Black Lives Matter fists and all that. So you should understand we're not dealing with your regular run-of-the-mill Democrats who are just like, hey, they're a little left of center, they're a little right of center. We're dealing with a culture war where people want to see others exposed. And I will, in the coming weeks, I will read to you. When I get Free Atlantic Radio up, actually, I have had someone leak to me Antifa's documents of what they actually give their own people, and I did share it in our one group, in our in the Telegram group, which is t.me/coronavirus central. But this is the stuff they don't want you to have, so I will definitely be sure to share that with you in depth for one episode, because I think you need to know just how much they hate you and that they do want you dead. I mean, they absolutely want you dead. That they, their idea of social justice, they have a religion. That's just what it is, because you can't disprove it, where basically anything they don't like is bad, anything that's not about love. They literally live in the world of Orwell. And unfortunately, if you don't and they can't re-educate you into stupidity, you are going to be a target. This is what's going to end up happening. So interesting, you have Biden signs in your neighborhood. I haven't seen any anywhere in Maine, and I've gone to some pretty liberal neighborhoods. I did see them have anyone but Trump signs up, but we'll see. So we'll go through this. I want to say hi to everyone who's here. We're going to go through your questions. You guys give me good questions. We'll have a more entertaining show. I'm committed to being here for at least the hour. You all know I'll run as long as 2 hours if it makes sense. We'll go where the chat takes us. Digressions. Who knows what will pop into my head. We'll see what happens with that. So hopefully it'll be a good show. Okay, Benny, glad to see you. Joseph, glad you're here. Alexa, welcome. Brian, glad to see you. Living Soul, good to see you. John, glad you're here. Good to see you in Niagara Outpost. There you go, my man. Ed Lorenzo, hope all's well for you up there. Dean, good to see you. Glad you're here, man. Let's see. Digital currency is coming soon. Yeah, expect this. I would say you should expect the virus will be used as a means to eliminate cash within the next year to 18 months. and all that money you saved under your mattress will be worthless. They'll give you a redemption period during the inflationary cycle where you'll be able to spend it, but ultimately everything's going to be trackable. So if you want to get something now and be off system, you need to buy it. And I would make this suggestion. I strongly believe this, given the rate at which we're spending and given all the lockdowns, the government's going to have to spend a lot. I don't oppose that in theory, but I just know how this is going to work out. Your purchasing power is going to get weaker and weaker as time goes by, and your ability to get goods is going to get lesser and lesser. So if there are things you want, do it today. Don't do it tomorrow. I know people are scared to death of debts. Debts aren't going to be what's sinking you. Lack of ability to reach the fixed assets you need are. Think about that carefully, okay? All right, what else we got? I got 300 confirmed kills. Escaped from the deep underground bunker at the Denver airport. You know, if you look at the Denver airport, have you guys ever looked at that picture there, that famous mural? This would be, let's go down a bunker for a second. Let's see, Denver airport mural, see if I can find it here. If you've never seen it, I mean, the thing about the world that's really interesting is if you actually learn to seek, you will see things. There's all these things that happen around you that you never really learn to see if you know what you're looking for. We'll just give you one example of this. Let's see what the Denver airport mural is. This is, we'll see. I don't want the good one. I want the ugly one. Let's find the mean one. Where is the Denver airport mural that has the... Oh, here we go. This is the one I want. Copy image address. Okay, give me 1 second here. Like, look at this thing. This is literally what got painted. All right, this is just a Google. Doesn't want to copy it. All right, give me a second. Let me find a way to get this. 1 second here and click it. Click it. See if you can get this here. 1 second here. It'll be worth it. I'm not just wasting your time. Hopefully. I mean, well, I am wasting your time. You guys come here for me to waste your time. And why else would you be here on a Monday evening? It's the best program you don't have to pay for on all of the internet, right? So check this out. This is actually interesting. So, and John's a little bit of an aware guy, but look at these creepy paintings, right? Let's just take a look at these first. You know, you see all these crazy things, and literally, this was done in like 91, I think, 94, something like that. But you got these creepy children. You got Aztec fire gods in this Quetzalcoatl. You know, you have a turtle caught in this netting, and then you have the one guy at the bottom. Hopefully, I have the really creepy one where you have the guy, oh yeah, the stormtrooper. Now, this is really interesting. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see a stormtrooper carrying a knife that's killing peace, a bayoneted rifle in his hand, and literally what's behind his rifle, a rainbow flag. Isn't it funny? It's almost like they knew something was coming, that the Force would come using social justice. But this is from 1990, so how could something be known about so far in advance? What you realize is the people who propagandize know many, many years in advance, and all of this stuff is plotting out. You want to read books about stuff like this? Here's a good one for you. You can go read Hope and Tragedy by Carol Quigley, and you can read the rebuttal to him. It's an older book, The Naked Communist, Exposing Communism, Restoring Freedom, W. Cleon Skousen. The guy got derided as a kook because he was in the John Birch Society. The John Birch Society is what the Republican Party would have been if it was about conservatism. They were the people trying to actually defend the Constitution, but they got purged by the free market forces, i.e. the banks, and by the Bill Buckleyites. You know, would you trust a conservative coming out of Yale? The whole Republican Party did, and in fact, that's where it went. But if you start to understand the history of things, you understand this thing goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And that a lot of the freedoms we've had have been an illusion. And when was the last time we had freedom? Well, when was the last time we had a frontier, you know? But the good news is the world's crazy. And with this much chaos, there is an opening for something new in the system. That's why we have to talk about what we want to do now and understand you as a soul have a conscious choice about the future you want to make. Play a role in it. Play something positive, you know, and you don't have to be political about it. You hate politics, great. You're a good person. Congratulations. Find a way to help people. Be the change you want to be. I really do believe in that. But be realistic about what the world is, too. All right, who else do we got here? Let's see. Sam, have I heard about the new virus coming out of China, G4EA-H1N1? Yeah, is that the swine one? I have read about this a little bit. We'll see how bad it is. I mean, one of the things, another thing that I thought was really interesting, did any of you see, all right, so The Economist magazine is one of these magazines that's out there that constantly really sort of looks ahead to what's coming. So there was an example, and I will grab it for you because you don't have it here. I wish I could share pictures with you, but if you look at it this week, well, you would find out, let me find it in Rabbit Hole, because if you look for it, and go find it if you can, I'll try to find you one where you can see it. Oh, did they? All right, so where did I get this from? 1 second here. Copy link. Let's see. It will only work for members of this chat, right? Copy image. See if we can do this. Economist cover. Give me 1 second. I will get it for you. I am promising you that I will do that. So 1 second here. Search. You know, it used to be easier to search. Have you noticed that the search engines always let you do less and less and less and less? And it's just really, really annoying. Damn it. I'm going to find it. All right, give me 1 second here. See if we can find it. I'm looking for the most recent one because it's much easier to do this on the phone, oddly enough, but it doesn't, I guess it doesn't really matter. Search settings. Currently show. All right. I'll just tell you what's on it. If you can't find it, it doesn't matter. Here's what we got. On it, there's a picture that says the next catastrophe and how to survive it. There's a clock with 100 seconds to midnight, a family, presumably white given their skin tone, that's sitting there with 3 gas masks on and a cat with a gas mask. You see a picture of a pig, which could be the swine flu. You see a melting penguin on an ice cap, which could be global warming, a volcano, a comet striking the Earth, some sort of virus looks like coronavirus, a mushroom cloud, and what I believe is a solar flare. So these are things you might expect to be hearing about in the future. And remember, just because you hear about things doesn't mean they happen, but there are a lot of really messed up things on the horizon, and I would expect that we are going to get pummeled until our society breaks. This is an endgame type attack because the world will never be the same after this. America is being set up for destruction as part of an effort to make a new global world. And why would America do that when Americans are nice, reasonable people? Because you can't have the idea of sovereignty in this world. And America is a bad country in this sense that we have a nationalist revolt, and people didn't like that. So that's one part of it. The other thing is there are countries that don't like us for reasons. Like, for instance, and this will sound crazy to you, but bear with me for a minute. Russia just consecrated a military cathedral. Literally, they put God back in their constitution, and they've basically been going out there saying that we are going to restore the values that we once held under Tsardom and connect to our history. And literally, they are praying for divine providence as they go out there and get ready to go into the world. And when you look at the things America's celebrating, and you look at the battle they might pick, you have to ask, America's been fighting war after war in terms of terrorist countries, helping cause problems for awful regimes left and right, and you ask yourself, who's the good guy and who's the bad guy? And I know we've been conditioned and propagandized to believe America is a great country in a lot of ways. And for some of our people it is, and for some of our people it isn't. But for the larger world, we've been a bully for a very, very long time, and we might have been a benevolent bully by global standards. I'll admit that. Nonetheless, as you look at, we go deeper and deeper degeneracy, a lot of the world will say these people are nuts. They have viruses going around. They don't care. They're in political conflict, and you have people rioting in the streets. Some people who look from the left wing will say, hey, they're trying to kill all the black people. Other people look from conservatives be like, oh my God, they're setting up all the white people to live in another South Africa. But however you look at it, Christians getting purged, whatever's going to happen, social media being shut down, we're going to look like the bad guy to everyone. And at some point, people are going to decide we're a rabid dog that needs to be put down, and we're behaving like one. And if we're going to change that story, we have to change how we act. And if we can't change it everywhere, we can change it somewhere. DC is not going to change that, you know? I mean, like, I'll give you an example. Just today, and I know some of you will disagree deeply with this, but for instance, a lot of conservatives for many, many years have counted on the Supreme Court to save them from the excesses of the country. As we've now seen them uphold a whole bunch of things, including abortion today, literally, we are now at a point where you can't argue that any relevant level of the government is going to save you. The legislature didn't do it. The executive didn't do it. The judiciary didn't do it. All of them are basically subsidiaries of who owns them. That's who the bank. And the banks are the ones we're fighting against. And that's what this all comes down to. That money is a evil compulsion we have to escape. And if you're going to escape it, if you're going to worship money, and that's what we do in this country. Let's be honest. You organize your whole life about it. You decide what you're going to do with most of your time on it. You know, your housing, everything about it. If we're going to restructure, we're going to have to fight that away. And not that money's not a tool, but should you serve your life to a tool? I don't think so. And yet we do that, and other countries may not. I mean, whether it's a cause or something else, people need to think differently. Otherwise, we're going to be put down as just sort of this crazy maniacal cult, and this is where we're at. And it's sad. I don't want to say that because it's not like there aren't good ideas in America, and it's not that there aren't good people, but we're passive. We've been weak. We've been tired, and we're going to have to do things. You're going to have to do things you don't like. You're going to have to compromise things you don't want to. It's going to be rough. And I'm just telling you what's coming. You can shoot the messenger. That's fine. I don't mind that, but it's the reality of it. All right, let's see what else we got here. Bum 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 bum. What is it? Have I heard about this? Brian, good to see you. Let's see. Alicia says Costco and Walmart are buying canned goods from factories, leaving nothing for smaller grocery stores. I absolutely believe that. So, what did I find about home rule and Dillon rule? Give me a second. I gotta look what this is. Dillon rule is so it upheld. Well, okay. So here's what it says. All right, so I will answer that because I didn't recognize the name, but I know the principle. The Constitution in this rule, Gina, basically says the 10th Amendment gives states the power to make decisions about how they want. My understanding is, and every state's a little bit different, is in most commonwealths, powers delineate to the more local form of government, which is to say, if it's a township in Pennsylvania or municipality, in most states, states do have the authority as long as they have a Republican form of government. I think that's a requirement to go ahead and take authority over local levels. The governor has absolute executive authority in the state under the respective state constitutions, according to the Supreme Court. Should that be the case? I don't know. I mean, at this point, the thing about it is all of our governmental figures are basically violating the Bill of Rights pretty consistently. So I would argue that they have nullified their own status. And it's an interesting thing. In legal precedent, they don't tell you this, but there's something called jury nullification. It goes something like this. You commit a crime where you plead to the jury that it was necessary for you to do what you did, and the jury decides, in light of these specific circumstances, that you are not guilty. Even though you commit, they nullify the crime because as a trial of your peers, this exists. And prosecutors hate this. Judges get livid when you do it, but realistically, sometimes this is necessary. And this is one way people can take power back from a corrupt judiciary. It's why if you have a criminal case, you actually should almost always go for a jury trial because judges are basically, they make a lot of decisions based on precedent and other actions that are not really legally justifiable. So that's something you'll need to be aware of. And at this point, look, I'm not telling you to run afoul of the law deliberately, but let's be honest, the police get screwed by the law left and right. I mean, literally, if you some of you probably saw the thing Tucker Carlson had on. A woman's in Virginia and she has a little baby in the car. She's all alone. An angry horde of protesters are jumping on her vehicle, causing all sorts of problems. And she calls 911, asks for help, and 911 says, "Ma'am, if you have a problem, call City Hall. That's an organized protest." And the mayor apologized to the protesters, not to the woman whose life was being destroyed, whose kid was being terrorized. Our government wants us terrorized. Why? Because they get power from that. Understand that. The weaker you are, the stronger they are. That's why all these things are enabling or to degrade your ability to be a citizen, to have resistance. And look, I'm a monarchist. You all know that. I've told you that. But one of the things you find is you need active citizens, regardless of whether you live in a republic, a monarchy, a democracy, whatever form of system. Otherwise, you end up with serfs and slaves. And that's what they want because at that point, you won't question things. And you always need to question things. You know, I questioned at the beginning of the COVID outbreak why we weren't doing more. I still stand by that questioning. I made a lot of people mad who are on the right because I took it seriously. No regrets about that. Now I'm making a lot of people mad on the left because I'm like, why are you trying to destroy everything and paint 60% of Americans as some untenable evil, you know, that DeFranco bitch? Ultimately, that is a question you need to ask because it is creating a situation where wars are inevitable. And I'm not part of the party of discord. I'm part of the party of concord. We're going to try to save lives and save something decent, and we're going to do it in northern Appalachia. So if you're up here, we're going to try to help you out. And if you're in the cities, you're stuck, but we're still going to try to help you out, and we're going to need people to do it. And I already know how it's going to play out. I just can't say it because too many people watch this thing. But use your mind. I taught you some tricks about how to think about things. Go a couple steps ahead. But thank you for the question, Gina. I love the question. Let's see. Throttle Grim writes, what about the banks? Have you heard about bail-in laws being rolled out around the world? Where do I think the safest place to store wealth is? I think the euro might be a little bit safe right now, to be honest with you. I think the Swiss franc is always a safe bet if you want to put it in that. But, I mean, I don't know. I think currency is going to go digital. I think BTC is actually not a bad bet if you could go that. And, you know, I think on-hand silver is never a bad bet. It's more liquid than gold. I think that's important. So, freeing Radio Free Atlantic, freeing one enslaved mind at a time. That's like Dave Hodges' thing on the Common Sense Show. But I decided to call it Free Atlantic Radio that way for one reason, because the motto becomes "Go far." You know, that's what we need to do. And I'm going to try to help people. And you know what? I'm going to try. I don't know if I can do this. I'm going to need some help. But if we have anyone here who really knows how to do it, I will try to do a call-in show once a week or something. So we can get your information. We can get your news. If you guys want that, let me know. And it's going to take a while before I get this figured out. The truth is, I don't like being a public figure, but what the hell? I guess I'm more willing to be hated than most people. All right, what do we got? Landon writes, the cancellation of all the 4th celebrations is a good reality check to realize we're not free. We have to reclaim our independence and make it have substance again. I agree. So let's see. What's up, writes Juan. Good to see you here. Omega says, beware of large, edgy chat groups. FBI is looking for the next supremacist terrorist to set up in order to distract people from BLM virus, or BLM virus, right? That's how I look at it. BLM violence. That's absolutely true. And yeah, I mean, look, you have to know the law. Don't agitate. You should never, ever, 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 ever advocate for violent action anywhere online. Anyone can hear you, anything like that. They'll instantly send you to jail and throw away the key. I talk to people who are in that situation, even who meant it sarcastically. It doesn't matter. You will be seen that way. You should never have that conversation. Have an understanding with people about the ability to provide collective self-defense. And I'm going to tell you, this is going to get to a point where eventually militias will be needed. I actually believe that. But that's neither here nor there. Those things will come later. This isn't the time for that. Aren't 4th of July celebrations being canceled because of the pandemic? They're being canceled for a lot of different reasons. But the truth is that all of this is getting to a point where we're being forced to submit. I mean, let's be honest, fireworks shows, okay? If you're sitting in your car watching a fireworks show, is that more or less safe than what they allow? You really have to ask the question, what's not being allowed and what's being allowed? And I'm starting to ask that question. I think every one of us should ask that question. Are there physical guillotines somewhere? According to what I have heard, the FEMA has potentially as many as 150,000 of them. I don't know. I will. Let me say this. Let me see if I can find this. This is a crazy story. I hear a lot of things. I only share so much because it really would be upsetting, some of the things that I read. But apparently, we have seen there are a lot of guillotines they've been testing on mice for whatever reason, for different things. And I have heard and I've read from 3 different sources that they see a lot of these at FEMA camps. Why that should be? The problem is, I have to say this. If you start looking too deeply and you see the things that are out there, you start to think the world is crazy. And you'd say stuff no one would believe because we can't believe people be that rotten. But as for me, I believe it, man. I believe that based upon how they treated us during COVID, that they were willing to let us rot, that we are dealing with people who have no problem with mass death. And if you think about it, it solves the unemployment problem. It solves the debt problem. It fits the climate change ideology. It fits social justice ideology. People are peripheral in this. And I think that you have to take people at their word. Ideology has consequences, and that's some of the thing that we see. That's how I see. So we'll see. All right, where are we? And hello to everyone who's here, by the way. Welcome to the show. Hope you're having a good time here. Let's see. Biden signs in your neighborhood. Lee writes, welcome, Lee. Good to see you here. When do you think this chaos will spread into the rural areas such as South Dakota and Wyoming? I think that with the exception of maybe Jackson Hole, where all the sort of rich urbanites escape to, I don't think you're going to see it in South Dakota and Wyoming. I don't think you're going to see it in Idaho either. Maybe around Boise State, We got an Idahoan in here. I'll let them talk. But I think the center is, and I think it's interesting. Trump is going to theoretically, I think he's supposed to be at Mount Rushmore on July 3rd. And who knows, Trump is letting this build to a fever pitch without doing anything. I hope there's something behind all of it. I really do, but I don't think there is. I don't have a lot of faith in what's happening out there. And my idea of what would constitute an acceptable response to keep this country together is probably very different than a lot of yours, or maybe not. It's certainly different than what I'm advocating for, because America can stay a great country, but there's no way I can see America as a good country. And I'll just put it to you that way. If you've read my books, you understand what I mean by that, because ultimately the only way America survives as an authoritarian empire. You ever get a string of words that just don't want to go together? Anyway, I agree. Yeah, no, demoralization is absolutely right. They're trying to make us be second-class citizens. You never say, and by the way, don't apologize for your beliefs. Don't apologize for your identity. How crazy is that? You're white, you're Christian, hetero. Okay. So what? Good, great. And I'm not saying you need to attack others. It's not about that. I mean, I have ideas of what's right and wrong, but don't apologize for stop apologizing. Don't ever apologize. Even when you're right, don't apologize. Apologize to God. Seek repentance. We all get things, But but the extent to which people apologize, it's so insincere, it's so obvious, but this is the world we live in. And you know what? If you deal with social consequences, deal with social consequences. Push back. Morality is built when unjust acts are done to righteous people. That's when the anger will come to do this. If you submit, all that will happen is you are consigning yourself, your children, and your grandchildren to generations of despair. Go read Solzhenitsyn. All right. Let's see what else we got here. What's happening with China? So I read a rumor that China might be facing a coup of their own where the hardliners are trying to push out Xi Jinping because apparently a lot of people aren't happy over there. Remember, China's got another big problem we never talk about. That one-child policy, the whole country's a sausage party. You realize that. There's a lot of problems in China. And I will give you more information on China. Dean, that's a great question. And I will have something better for you by Friday. I'm going to do a lot more research on that because I've been watching a lot of things about dangers at our borders, including the northern border, including things happening in Canada that are a little bit funny. So I don't have a lot of details I can give you, but I'm trying to do the research. Read COVID triggers type 1 diabetes. That's terrible. Yeah, I really believe COVID is a little bit like playing Russian roulette, where every cylinder, every bullet is going to be a different sort of disease, and one just lets you off easy. Let's see here. Let's see. Text Dino here. Good to see you, Captain Bob. Good to see you, Dino. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, I don't want you, but Joseph, let me get to the point here. What I'm saying, I don't want you to get sick either. But you tell me, are you going to be unsafe if you're having a celebration where you sit in your car? They're canceling them for more reasons. You could have rules. I don't have a problem with that, but this is something you need to have. You need to have consistent standards. I absolutely agree with that. So let's see what else we got there. Throttle, good to see you. Let's see the Masonic plaque in front of the airport. Absolutely, John, you're absolutely right about that. The horse with the blue eyes. I mean, these are creepy. I'm glad you guys are looking at them. Let's see, but yeah, the thing is the victim thing. They removed the stormtrooper. Yeah, they removed the stormtrooper. It's crazy. So it's a very weird airport. Actually, the way it's built is very nutty. So you guys know about some of this stuff. Which I'm just reading through what you're saying here. I love getting pictures, Gina, by the way. If you want to show me your garden, my email is coronaviruscentral@pm.me. Absolutely do that. Can I speak on G. Edward Griffin? Man, G. Edward Griffin, I always called him, it's a little personal joke, I always called him Papa Smurf because that's what I thought he looked like. G. Edward Griffin wrote The Creature from Jekyll Island, which was a deep coverage of the scam by which the Federal Reserve was created. And what happened was there were a series of panics where basically bankers would create situations arguing that bankers needed more power to control the economy, but that they couldn't be beholden to political interest. And so G. Edward Griffin wrote about that. He also wrote about different threats that the economy had faced. And he was basically a real patriot. There were a lot of patriots, like even Joe McCarthy. People really don't know the history of it. And because, I mean, ultimately they didn't get control of the schools. One of the things that people don't know is there was a big fight for the schools in the 50s and 60s. Basically, there were mainline WASPs that got replaced by Marxist intellectuals, many of whom were emigres from Germany. Actually, who the Germans kicked out came over to America and destabilized the United States. They did it both in the top-level universities as well as many of the traditionally minority universities where a lot of the people didn't want to work, but a lot of these emigre intellectuals took those jobs. So that's what led to some of the racialist power ideologies that then in the second generation got picked up and radicalized as we see today. And that's why you see the leaders of Black Lives Matter actually say they're avowed Marxists. You can actually trace these ideas and you can trace the origins of communism. And if you want to go down those rabbit holes, you're certainly welcome to do so. What you would find is it has very evil backgrounds. And it's based in that party, like I said, of discord. It's divide and conquer. Whereas in Concord, you look to rise up to a common principle. In discord, you look to destroy people to a common denominator. And that's really what we're looking at here. I think that's one of the things. But thank you for mentioning that, John. I would love to talk about that a lot more. You're learning Russian now. If the bankers and Israelites hate them, the Russia might be. Well, the thing about Russia is I don't think they're an ally to the United States, to be honest with you, but I think they are trying to reclaim their Christianity. And I think that will be the means by which they look at this thing. If America looks like a wicked place by that standard, I mean, there's a lot of times you have people who are neither friends nor enemies, but they have their own view of the world. And the Russian view of the world is very different. I mean, I spend time reading some of their stuff. Like if you want to read Katahan or some of those websites that cover that, it's a really fascinating worldview, and it's actually a much more honest look at what's happening in the United States. we tend to look at the United States from the perspective of our interpolitical efforts, and we separate politics from culture and culture from economy. But other countries don't do that, and what they see is a corrupt and decadent culture of people who are obsessed with money and status attacking one another, where one group is just worried about getting rich and hiding off on their own, and the other group has been whipped into an orgy of violence and anger, destroying their own cities. From the outside, it wouldn't look very good to you either. They probably wonder if we're rabid with some weird variant of COVID, and when they nuke a couple cities, you'll understand why. Really scary thought, but it is truth. It's a good point, Landon. Writing in God We Trust. Who's God, you know? Let's see. Larry Pinkney, the original Black Member Party, was very well-spoken and compelling. He said everyone needs to get their act together. I think that that's true. They do need to get their act together. China and India are still sitting there at the border. They've changed the rules of protocol for the time being. America is actually sending, from what I've read, a series of mid-range intermediary missiles to them. Keep an eye on it. People are going forward here. So what's the deal with Trump? Is he a complete fake? Why aren't the active denial systems being deployed on his riots? So I've heard a couple different theories for this. Number one is Trump theoretically doesn't have the authority to go in there if the governors don't complain that these are problems, or the mayors don't. He could be hiding behind the Constitution. A second reason is that the military, at least enough voices in it, are threatening to cause a fight within the military if it happens, so he won't do it for that reason. Or a third reason is he is a coward who doesn't understand this and thinks it'll help his politics. Or fourth reason is he's a plant. I don't know. You'll have to figure out what you think it is. I do know that there is an argument out there that if you go ahead and do this, people will be seen as a bully, but you'd rather be strong than weak, I think. And politically, that's absolutely true, so we'll see. But I don't know the answer to your question. Why do I dislike the current pope? Is it his politics? Absolutely. I do not like. It's not my goal to have. This is not a time for Christian disunity, so I'm not going to go into my complaints about Catholicism. I have doctrinal issues with Catholicism that are more theological in nature as well. I certainly don't believe in the primacy of Peter. I am aware of the issues involved. I tend to take the orthodox position on these things. But the current pope honestly believes in liberation theology, and he is a pantheist. So I think that's really unfortunate. I think it's sad the Knights of Malta stopped fighting him. I'm aware there were issues. I have a lot of questions about how Pope Benedict was pushed aside, and I think Joseph Ratzinger was a far better bishop, as was Karol Wojtyla, or as you guys know, Pope John Paul II. I think the church has had many anti-popes, and I pray for my Catholic brothers and sisters for deliverance from their current leadership. And that's all I can say to you. So I'm not a fan of him at all. Not only that, but Francis, I mean, if I remember right, wasn't Francis a Jesuit? And there was a rule where the Jesuits were never supposed to be all right, so the movement, God, I don't want to get into the medieval history of this, but all right, the problem with the Catholic Church is a lot of orders came up for a really interesting reason. And Saint Ignatius Loyola, who basically came up with the order there of the Jesuits, basically made the lawyers of the church that were designed basically to be the sort of clever schemer types. And if I remember right, and I could be wrong because Catholicism isn't my strong point, that this was the group from which Francis ultimately emerged. And I find his emergence very scary. I actually hope, and this will surprise you, I hope they pick a black conservative pope from Africa who actually believes in the faith and doesn't believe the West is so corrupt in the church that you may literally need to go to that extent to fix Christianity. So if anyone ever thinks I'm racist, there you go. There's the disproof of that. But I am not, I don't, but I will say, to be very fair with you, I find most neo-evangelical churches to be completely devoid of biblical content. I find most mainline churches to be devoid of any Christian content, and there's a very small remnant within Christianity who actually practice the Bible as taught. And I think if you don't follow God's word, don't be surprised when He abandons you. I see more churches up these days in New England, honestly, with rainbows instead of crosses. So take that for what it's worth, and I think that that's absolutely a problem. So, is it possible for China to send us an EMP? Of course it is. You'd have to go hypersonic to the right level. More likely to do that from a satellite, though, and that could happen. If it did, I would expect it to be over central U.S. Maybe watch the old show Jericho. It might give you a feel. Yeah, Jekyll Island's a good book. Absolutely. From an economic perspective, what is the difference between fascism and communism? Fascism historically has been private ownership of the companies working with the state through contracts, whereas communism was direct state ownership of the industries. So you have an in-between step in that. Now, mind you, there's a difference between fascism, National Socialism, all these things. really super micro in all of this, but suffice it to say, usually in the right-leaning systems, there's still private ownership of capital, but it's usually funded very heavily by the state for the warfare machine. That's the way. And by the classical definition, America actually operates like a fascist country, but that's not because of Donald Trump. That's more because of how we've gone ahead in the economic model only, where the biggest corporations actually exist off those huge government contracts. And they basically get their money from the taxpayers or the bank. What is my opinion on Q? Do you think, do I keep my eye on the Q postings? In your opinion, is Q worth paying attention to? I consider Q to be boomer porn. I've said that before. Q is word salad and fortune cookies to keep people from actually acting. Now, let me say one thing. There is some really interesting research that come out of there, but I do actually believe the biggest thing it does is it keeps the right wing calm and thinking they're going to get a solution. Remember, trust Jeff Sessions? Yeah, that didn't work so well. Don't trust anyone. Trust what you know for yourself, and don't count on anyone else to be responsible for you. So that is one of the problems here. So I think that's right. Let's see. Once the death rate starts climbing, everything will change about 10% saturation. We may have that, man. And if it does and everyone's in lockdown, then the only thing I'm worried about is if people disappear, who will know? Imagine a time where we live in an internet where people are taken off of it all the time, and you see dissenting voices. In China, when the thing first broke, anyone who questioned the government had a tendency to disappear. Dissidents went all away. So if you're not a dissident, if you're a good, low person and you follow along, you may not have the same thing to worry about. But as for me, I am very, very concerned about that. So I think that is a big problem. So that is, and maybe my differences are a little different than yours because I've said some things that give me trouble. You don't write books like this, The Coming Civil War, where, you go through there and you have that. I mean, my whole library, literally, if they end up having a forbidden books list, I should have about half of them in here. I mean, I have all sorts of books, and it's interesting. You deserve the right to know your history. I think that's where those things go. So, but it's a good point, Juwan. I think, look, I'm not telling people not to keep safe. And I know it probably seems contradictory, and you have to make judgments upon what's your biggest risk. And that's what I say to everyone. I have to do things. And I will tell you, I wrote on my Gab account today that I am hurt and angry that I wanted a world where people were better and we could take care of each other. And I still try to do that. But there are so many people who went the other way, both in power and in the streets. And I don't have any more patience for the ignorant. And I have no mercy for the people who were wicked. And that's just what it is. I mean, I'm a Days Old Crusader. What can I tell you? That's it. I'm ready to pick up my cross and put on my thing and stand up for it. That's literally where I think the problem is going to be. And I think that's the means by which this, I believe it's a fight between good and evil. And I'm literally going to speak in that way. And I'm going to be painted as the voice of evil, which means I'll be good to some. And I'm going to speak for the people no one wants to speak for. That's what I do. That's what justice is. And not because I have anything against people who want something different. I've talked about the ability to come to a reconciliation. I've talked about the ability to do a separation, but I know that's not going to be permitted. I understand we're dealing with zealotry, and I understand all the consequences of this. I mean, look, you don't sit here and read all 8 billion of these books. I mean, how many books I got here? It's ridiculous. Just give you a feel for how many are in here. You can see book, and then we got games, and there's more books on the left. I'll put that back in the center so you can see better. I mean, literally. And I've read probably 80% of them. I haven't read every one of them, but I've read most of them. I wish I could read more. I don't read that much these days. I'd like to. I'm going to read that White Armies of Russia book, George Stewart, so I'll be talking about if you have any questions. Anyway, so let's see what we got here. The throne of St. Peter has been vacant since the death of Pius XII. Not like the conservative Malta types are much better. Well, the problem is the Catholic Church is a big institution. It has a lot of issues. I don't want to piss on the Catholic Church. It's hard to do things at that level, but there's a lot of problems, and there's some very good people in that. So I pray for them. I pray for my brothers and sisters over there who are over there because I know it's a hard spot. And I mean, from my perspective, look, I was baptized Catholic. I'm Polish, right? Catholic family. I was theoretically in that thing. I doctrinally can't agree with some of the decisions. What would be an example of what I don't believe? Plenary indulgence. There's one. There's a lot of ones. The Virgin Mary being a virgin, I have an issue with that. Not Mary being a virgin, but rather her. There's a Marian cult in the Catholic Church that I find difficult, and I don't want to take anything away from the Holy Mother, but I found that when you put God in the feminine form, All right, Chip. All right, we'll go deep down a rabbit hole. So the original form of paganism was a religion that was created by Nimrod in Babylon, or by the Tower of Babel, and it basically is. You probably know, if you know the story of Osiris, Iris, and what's the name? The kid. Ra, I think, is how it works. And you see this in different versions where this ends up working. I might have told it wrong, but this idea of the mother and son motif, that literally was what was created. His queen was a woman named Semiramis, and she was basically a conjurer back in ancient, and it was her idea to build the tower. And the tower in biblical times actually meant a pyramid. So this is ancient prehistory, right? So when you start to understand the prehistory of this, what happens is the pyramid builders, which was a group that came right after the flood in prehistory, and what you want to believe that means metaphorically, whatever. The truth is there's big evidence out there in all these pyramids that no one knows how they were built. They came out right afterwards. And the pyramids had part of a religion. So why do you see the pyramids everywhere with the eye? The eye is the eye of the serpent, where the religion is do as thou wilt. And the pyramid is the effort to go ahead and say that man is on the same tier with God. And that's what the original sorceress sent, that man would be as God, that the original king that was put out there to supplant the father was Nimrod, and the Tower of Babel, which he created, was this idea that as a great warrior, he was going to create this religion, right? And that his son was going to be the redemption. So it was a parallel and a mockery of what actually ended up being Christianity, and that was promised that the Lord would come, and that there was always this prophecy of this, that this would happen. So what they did was they did what often happens in evil, is they create a parallel of this. So you see the same sort of thing happen usually in different forms of sort of pagan worship, where they adopt this sort of big key idea, but it ultimately goes back. The original cult was Nimrod, was it Semiramis and Tammuz, if you go back far enough. And then this goes into the Babylonian versions, and you can learn how you see this if you study ancient archaeology, how these different pieces work. So it's kind of really a complicated thing to understand, but it's really not that complicated, because there's good and there's evil. And then the thing about it is God, I always tell people believe in a universal God, but if God is the exact example of everything, then God is going to be very specific. And I would ask you, which God would actually give you grace versus every other one, which gives you submission or a law to be stuck under? And that's why I believe in Christianity. But I know other people don't. And you know what? Look, I'm willing to bet my soul and my life on my belief, and that's the only people who will change the world. And honestly, it's worked out pretty good for us to this point. It's just because we've abandoned that faith. Russia's gone back to other places will as well. Those are some things that I think people should be aware of. And I like talking about theology. It's a hobby of mine, and I wish I spent more time studying it. It's my favorite thing to study, but I don't get time to do it. But I would say it's a good time to get your soul saved. And I know there's a couple people in here who should know better, and you know who you are. You don't need me to tell you. I mean, ultimately, I'll bludgeon you into understanding. That's what I do. And my job is to help reach the people who are unreachable for all sorts of things. Jericho was a great show, by the way. Loved Jericho. Absolutely. Was tremendous. It's too bad they shortened it. It really makes me sad. What do I think about the new hotspots being in red areas? Is this the products of conservatives thinking a hoax, or is it a means of politicizing the virus? I think there's a simpler answer. I mean, I think a lot of conservatives want to believe this is a hoax because of what's being done. I don't take an either-or perspective. I believe that the virus is being used to advance agendas, but the virus is real, and that the idea of getting people sick or hurt or killed doesn't actually weaken the government's case. The worse things get, the more people lean on the government. So why not have it both ways? Remove some people you don't like at the same time that you have a virus go around that's going to spread, that people are going to get sick. Is it amped up a little bit in terms of media hysteria for certain groups and not others? Absolutely. But it doesn't make it not real. I mean, like I said, you have to think of agendas and causes and purposes. The depopulation agenda is very well understood. If you want to think of it in a nice way, think of why climate change is pushed so hard, right? It's not just the fact that, people are the problem, but we don't have an argument. Let's go live nativist. We can't have this many people in the planet. So what do you end up with? You end up with things like, what's her name? Sanger, where they say, oh, well, we need to abort this many kids, and we need to not have this amount of food, and, all of those sorts of things out there. So I think that's really one of the things you keep an eye on it. But the virus has been politicized. You're not going to put that back in there. And, no one trusts the government, and one side doesn't trust the other. And I don't know what you can do except organize yourself in a way that makes sense in the region you're in. And these other things are going to get worse. We shut down this thing again, the currency is going to collapse. Then you won't be able to buy things. And that's, the governors know it. Unemployment's empty. The Fed is literally putting out about $1 trillion into the budget every month at this point, probably a month and a half, and all the corporations are just being put out on funny money. Everyone's looking for the exits. I mean, you can feel the tension in the air, can't you? What's the death rate? Let's see what the death rate is. It's like a good question. We're going to see what the active live death rate is supposedly. No, we don't know the real death rate. The international death rate supposedly is at 4.9%. The countries rising fastest are U.S., Brazil, India. Well, let's just do, all right, we'll look real fast what this is. So the U.S. has gained 45,000 cases, Brazil 26,000, India 18,000. So Russia's gained 6719. South Africa's on the list. I haven't looked at them. They gained 6,000 cases. We have Argentina 4,500, Mexico 4,000, Chile 4,000, Bangladesh. That'll be a problem. They don't have much in the way of healthcare there. 4,000. Saudi Arabia 4,000. Pakistan 3,500. Colombia 3,200. So there's a lot of people. Sweden, remember, everyone was loving what they were doing. 2,500 there. It's pretty bad. And we're going to see. And the death rates, though, I will say the death rates in most places are flatter. So I think the doctors are getting a better handle on it, but you're still looking at probably about 2 to 3% at this point. And we'll see if it gets bad enough. I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. We'll have to keep an eye on it. I think you should be a little bit safe, but it's hard for me. I live in a rural area where my threats I look at are different than what you might look at out there. But I will say this: a lot of people are going to take advantage of this, and the fact that if you have a collapsed economy and an ineffectual government response, people are going to have no choice but to go out, and you're going to have to expect that's going to be part of the deal. So we'll see that. What does FEMA really do in a pandemic? It's a good question for you. FEMA does what it wants to do. On March 13th, President Trump signed an Emergency Powers Act that gave power over to them. There are some people who make the argument, not without justification, that the president doesn't have control of America anymore. And I mean that legally as well as otherwise. And how much trust you want to put in that man, I don't know the answer to that. I will say this: it's a dangerous time. Be smart. Keep your head on a swivel, and we'll try to be on top of it. So if anyone else has any other questions, get them in now. Get some likes up there. There's 55 of you. Slam the like button. Come on, come back here. It's the least you can do. Do that for me. And I'll say a quick prayer for everyone before we do this. So, Heavenly Father, I just pray for wisdom for all, for safety for everyone who's here. Let's hope this virus doesn't destroy all humanity. That would be good. And let's hope we don't all destroy each other. In Jesus' name, amen. Not my most eloquent prayer known to mankind, but hey, I'm a little bit tired, and I've been running around like a madman. If you guys have no idea what I've been up to, so reach out. We'll talk some more. And you know what, Landon, shoot me a line over on Telegram or something. I wanted to talk to you about something unrelated. You're out there, so since you're in here, so trust Jazz Hands McFeels, yeah. That's where I got invited to go on some of those shows. Maybe I should. It'll be a good time if I do it. In long term, should we get ammo and firearms? You bet you should want. Not only should you get them, you should be ready to use them. And get yourself. I will make 2 suggestions if you're going down that route. 2 things you need to do: get yourself some body armor and get yourself some night optics. You'll need to be ready for it because that's the sort of thing we're dealing with. But understand, I've had people tell me that there are battles happening within the military establishment. If that breaks out and we might be dealing with wonder weapons, do just try to keep safe for the time being. Work on political solutions. Do not worry too much about getting involved other than keeping your own neighborhood safe. When this big thing goes out, really, we're fighting a war over minds and hearts at this point, what that's going to go. Our military is the most powerful force in the world. Who knows who's going to control it, what they're going to do. Everyone have a good evening. God bless. Love you all.